Black mail-order bride rejected for being too poor, until a lonely billionaire changed her life. The Connecticut autumn air bit at Amara's cheeks as she stepped out of the taxi, her small suitcase clutched in one hand and a crumpled piece of paper with an address in the other. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. After 3 months of emails, video calls, and promises, she was finally here, standing before the wrought iron gates of what would supposedly be her new home. "This can't be right," she whispered, looking up at the sprawling estate that seemed to stretch endlessly behind manicured hedges. The taxi pulled away behind her, leaving nothing but the sound of crunching gravel under her worn boots. Amara Johnson had never imagined herself as someone who would use a matchmaking service, let alone one that specialized in connecting traditional women seeking stability with established gentlemen. That's how they had phrased it. The reality, that she was essentially a mail-order bride, had been easier to swallow when Gregory Whitcomb's messages had seemed so genuine, so different from the men she'd known in Atlanta. His words had painted pictures of a lonely man seeking connection, not just a trophy. "Your eyes hold stories I want to learn," he'd written after seeing her profile picture. "Your background in education shows your patience and intelligence. I don't want perfection, Amara. I want substance." She adjusted her simple navy dress, the nicest one she owned, and pressed the intercom button with a trembling finger. "Yes?" A clipped female voice answered, nothing like Gregory's warm baritone from their calls. "Hello, I'm Amara Johnson. I'm here to see Gregory Whitcomb." She tried to keep her voice steady, professional. No need to announce to a household staff member that she was here as a potential bride. The gates swung open without another word. Amara picked up her suitcase and began the long walk up the curved driveway, each step both taking her closer to her new life and somehow making her feel smaller. The Georgian-style mansion loomed larger with every step, its symmetrical windows staring down at her like judgmental eyes. By the time she reached the grand front door, Amara's confidence had dwindled to a flicker. Still, she straightened her spine, touched the small gold earrings her grandmother had given her for luck, and knocked. The door opened almost immediately, revealing not Gregory but a slender woman in her 60s, impeccably dressed in a cream cashmere sweater and pearl necklace. Her silver blonde hair was swept into a perfect chignon, not a strand out of place. Her eyes, the same striking blue as Gregory's, widened slightly as they took in Amara's appearance. "Can I help you?" The woman's voice was honey poured over ice. Amara swallowed. "I'm Amara Johnson. I'm here to see Gregory." A flash of recognition crossed the woman's face, followed quickly by something darker. "Ah. You're the teacher from Georgia." "Atlanta, yes." Amara extended her hand. "You must be Mrs. Whitcomb. Gregory mentioned his mother lived with him. It's lovely to meet you." Mrs. Whitcomb looked at Amara's outstretched hand as if she'd offered her a dead fish. Her gaze traveled slowly from Amara's face down to her sensible shoes, lingering briefly on her simple gold cross necklace and the suitcase. "Is that all you brought?" she asked, ignoring the handshake entirely. Heat rushed to Amara's cheeks. "Ah, yes. Gregory said I shouldn't worry about bringing too much. That we could shop for what I needed here." Mrs. Whitcomb's lips curved into what might technically be called a smile, though it held all the warmth of a January blizzard. "Did he now? How considerate." She stepped back slightly, but not enough to be an invitation inside. Behind her, Amara caught a glimpse of a grand staircase and crystal chandelier. "Gregory is indisposed at the moment," Mrs. Whitcomb said. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. We confirmed yesterday," Amara said, pulling out her phone. "I can show you our messages. He's expecting me today." Mrs. Whitcomb's nostrils flared slightly. "Young lady, do you have any idea what kind of family the Whitcombs are?" The question felt like a trap. "Gregory told me about your family's banking history and his position with the firm. He mentioned your philanthropy work with. We are one of the oldest families in Connecticut," Mrs. Whitcomb cut in. "Our name appears on buildings at Yale. We've had celebrities at our dinner table." A cold feeling settled in Amara's stomach. "I understand." Do you? Mrs. Whitcomb's eyes narrowed. Because I'm finding it difficult to understand why my son, who dated a duchess last summer, would arrange for. Her gaze flicked dismissively over Amara again. Someone of your background to arrive on our doorstep claiming some sort of arrangement. Amara felt as if she'd been slapped. Mrs. Whitcomb, with all due respect, I'm not claiming anything. Your son and I have been corresponding for months. He purchased my plane ticket. He asked me to come. Something moved in the shadows behind Mrs. Whitcomb. A figure appeared just over her shoulder, tall, handsome, exactly as he looked in his photos. Gregory Whitcomb's face was flushed, his blue eyes slightly glassy. Mother? He said, his voice carrying the slight slur of someone who'd been drinking. Who's at the door? Amara's heart leapt. Gregory? It's me, Amara. His eyes focused on her, and for a moment, Amara saw confusion. Then recognition. Then something that made her blood run cold, amusement. Oh. He blinked, then chuckled. Oh, you actually came. Mrs. Whitcomb turned to her son. Gregory, do you know this woman? Gregory ran a hand through his perfect hair, leaning against the doorframe. Sort of. Remember that international dating site Pierce was talking about at the club? The one he was too chicken to use after his fiancée kicked it? He gestured vaguely toward Amara. I was bored one night and signed up. Just to see what would happen. The world seemed to tilt beneath Amara's feet. What are you saying? Gregory shrugged, not quite meeting her eyes. Look, it was just something to do. Chatting with you was interesting, I guess. I didn't think you'd actually show up. You bought my plane ticket, Amara said, her voice barely above a whisper. You said you wanted to meet in person. That we had a connection. Did I? Gregory looked genuinely confused for a moment, then laughed again. God, I must have been wasted. Anderson had that poker night, and we went through like 3 bottles of Macallan. Mrs. Whitcomb's face had hardened into a mask of controlled fury. She turned back to Amara, eyes cold. As you can see, there's been a significant misunderstanding. My son sometimes has a juvenile sense of humor. We won't be requiring whatever services you thought you were offering. Services? Amara repeated, stunned. I'm a kindergarten teacher, not a... Whatever arrangement you thought existed. Mrs. Whitcomb continued as if Amara hadn't spoken. It doesn't. Gregory is currently seeing Charlotte Pembroke. Her father owns half of Manhattan. Gregory snickered behind his mother, pulling out his phone and appearing to text someone. I suggest you return to wherever you came from, Mrs. Whitcomb said, her voice softening into false sympathy. I'd be happy to call you another taxi. Amara stood frozen, humiliation burning through her veins like acid. I don't understand. All those conversations, they seemed so real. Mrs. Whitcomb sighed dramatically. My dear, Gregory is not interested in, well, charity cases. No offense intended. Behind her, Gregory had raised his phone. With a jolt, Amara realized he was taking her picture, capturing her moment of rejection and distress. None of this makes sense, Amara said, her voice stronger than she felt. Why would you do this? Why bring me all the way here just to... A bet, Gregory interrupted, finally looking at her directly. Pierce said no real woman would actually travel across the country to marry someone they met online. I said they would. He shrugged again. I won $5,000. If it helps, I'll send you a cut. The casual cruelty of it stole Amara's breath. She took one step backward, then another. Mrs. Whitcomb's fake smile returned. Gregory's always had an unusual sense of humor. No hard feelings, I hope. And as I said, I'm happy to call you that taxi. With the last shreds of her dignity, Amara shook her head. No thank you. I can manage. Mrs. Whitcomb nodded once, then closed the door with a definitive click. Through the frosted glass panels on either side, Amara could see 2 silhouettes, mother and son, and the unmistakable sound of laughter filtered through. Clutching her suitcase, she turned and began walking back down the long driveway, each step an effort not to run, not to show how deeply the humiliation cut. Her vision blurred with unshed tears, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not where they might see. The autumn wind had picked up, sending golden leaves spiraling around her as she reached the gates, which opened automatically to release her, unwanted, dismissed, a joke that had run its course. Amara stepped through them onto the sidewalk of the exclusive neighborhood, utterly alone in a strange place, her heart shattered but her spine still straight. She had no idea what to do next, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty: she would not let them see her break. Amara had walked perhaps 50 yards from the Whitcomb estate when the skies opened up. Fat raindrops pelted her thin jacket, quickly soaking through to her skin. Of course it would rain now, she thought bitterly. The perfect ending to her humiliation. She paused beneath the shelter of a massive oak tree, trying to gather her thoughts. Her phone showed no service, another cruel joke of fate. Her return flight wasn't for a week she'd imagined spending getting to know her future husband and his world. Now she had nowhere to go and limited funds for a hotel. Across the street, almost hidden behind a natural fence of tall cypress trees, stood another estate, less ostentatious than the Whitcombs, but no less impressive. Unlike the Georgian grandeur of Gregory's family home, this property featured clean modern lines and walls of glass that reflected the stormy sky. As Amara stood shivering, the front gates of this property swung open silently. A tall figure emerged, walking purposefully toward her with an umbrella in hand. He wore simple dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that looked casually expensive. His face was partially obscured by a neatly trimmed beard, but as he drew closer, Amara could see intelligent eyes studying her with cautious concern. "You might be more comfortable waiting out the storm inside," he said, his voice deep but gentle. He kept a respectful distance, holding out the umbrella but not forcing it upon her. "Unless you're waiting for someone?" "I'm not," Amara replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I don't make a habit of entering strangers' homes." A small smile crossed his face. "Nathaniel Pierce," he said, offering his free hand. "And you're Amara Johnson, kindergarten teacher from Atlanta. Former Georgia State University student, passionate about early childhood literacy." Amara stiffened, taking a step back. "How could you possibly know that?" "The same way Gregory Whitcomb did," Nathaniel said, lowering his hand when she didn't take it. "I've used the same matchmaking service. I recognize you from your profile." "Are you friends with him?" she asked sharply. "Is this some kind of extended joke?" Nathaniel's expression darkened. "Gregory Whitcomb and I are neighbors, not friends. Our families have a complicated history." He glanced back toward the Whitcomb estate. "I saw what happened from my office window. It wasn't right." Thunder rumbled overhead, and the rain intensified. Water began to drip through the oak leaves, splashing onto Amara's already damp shoulders. "Miss Johnson, would you care for tea instead of tears?" Nathaniel asked quietly. "No strings attached. Just a warm drink, a phone with service, and perhaps some advice on local accommodations." Amara studied him carefully. Unlike Gregory's practiced charm, there was something unpolished about Nathaniel's offer, a genuine awkwardness that felt more trustworthy than smooth words. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "Because 3 years ago, I nearly flew a woman from Barcelona to Connecticut," he replied simply. "I backed out at the last minute. Not because of a bet, but because I got scared. I've always wondered if she felt as lost as you look right now." Another clap of thunder decided for her. Amara nodded once and stepped under the umbrella he offered. They walked in silence across the street to his property, the gates opening automatically as they approached. Inside, the home was surprisingly warm despite its modern architecture. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed views of rain-soaked gardens, but the interior featured comfortable furniture, overflowing bookshelves, and subtle lighting that created a sense of sanctuary. "The guest bathroom is there if you'd like to dry off," Nathaniel said, gesturing to a door off the main hallway. "I'll make tea. Or coffee if you prefer." "Tea is fine," Amara replied, still wary but grateful for the refuge. When she emerged from the bathroom, her face washed and hair towel-dried, she found Nathaniel in the kitchen, setting out a simple spread of tea, scones, and fruit. "I should explain myself better," he said as she took a seat at the island counter. "I recognize you because I was browsing profiles on international connections last year after my fiancé died. I was lonely, desperate for someone who didn't know me or my history. I'm sorry for your loss," Amara said automatically, then frowned. "Wait, international connections? I never used that service. I met Gregory through Elite Match." Nathaniel looked genuinely surprised. "That's odd. I clearly remember your profile. The photo with you reading to your students." Amara's blood went cold. "That picture isn't on Elite Match. It's on my private Instagram." She set down her teacup with a clatter. "How did Gregory get that picture? How did you see it?" Nathaniel's expression shifted from confusion to grim understanding. "Gregory's cousin works in tech. He's been known to access profiles and data he shouldn't. So this was all what? Identity theft? Some kind of sick game? I think," Nathaniel said carefully, "there's more happening here than either of us understands. But if you'll trust me, I'd like to help you figure it out." Amara looked out at the rain lashing against the windows, then back at this stranger who seemed to be her only ally in this strange, cold place. "I don't have many options right now," she admitted. "But I'm nobody's charity case, Mr. Pierce." Nathaniel nodded, respect evident in his eyes. "I never thought you were, Ms. Johnson. And please call me Nathaniel." The rain continued to drum against the windows as evening fell. Amara sat at Nathaniel's kitchen island, finally eating her first real meal in 24 hours. Her stomach had been too knotted with anticipation during her flight to eat the airline food, and the events at the Whitcomb estate had finished any appetite she might have regained. But now, as she took another bite of the simple pasta Nathaniel had prepared, she realized she was ravenous. "There's more if you want it," Nathaniel said quietly, noticing her empty plate. "I shouldn't," Amara replied, though her stomach disagreed. "You've already been too kind." Nathaniel served her another portion without comment. There was something calming about his efficiency. No wasted movements, no unnecessary words. Unlike Gregory's practiced charm, Nathaniel's silence felt honest. "Why did you really help me?" Amara asked finally, setting down her fork. "The truth." Nathaniel considered her question, seeming to weigh his words carefully. "The Whitcombs and I have history," he said. "Gregory's father tried to ruin my first company. Nearly succeeded. So this is about revenge?" The pasta in Amara's stomach suddenly felt heavy. "No," Nathaniel said firmly. "I don't use people as pawns." He stared into his wineglass. "I helped you because 5 years ago, my fiancée Claire was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. 8 months later she was gone." The raw pain in his voice made Amara's chest tighten. "I'm so sorry. After Claire died, I threw myself into work. Created Pierce Technologies. Made billions. Became exactly what everyone expected, the reclusive tech genius." His smile was self-deprecating. 2 years of barely speaking to anyone outside of board meetings. "That's when you looked at the matchmaking site," Amara guessed. Nathaniel nodded. "My sister set up the profile. Said I needed to rejoin the human race. I browsed profiles for weeks. Saw yours." His eyes met hers. "But I never contacted anyone. Couldn't shake the feeling that it would be a betrayal of Claire." "I understand that," Amara said softly. "After my fiancé left me at the altar 3 years ago, I didn't date for 2 years." Surprise flickered across Nathaniel's face. "That wasn't in your profile." "No," she agreed. "Some pain you keep private." Understanding passed between them, a recognition of shared wounds. "So why did you finally try Elite Match?" Nathaniel asked. Amara traced the rim of her water glass. "My grandmother got sick last year. Before she passed, she made me promise not to waste my love, as she put it." The memory brought a sad smile to her face. "She said life is too short to protect your heart at the cost of your happiness. Wise woman." She was. Amara took a deep breath. I'm 32, Nathaniel. I've spent my adult life teaching other people's children, loving them, watching them grow. I want my own family someday. She shook her head. I thought Gregory might be that chance. Shows what a fool I was. You weren't a fool, Nathaniel said firmly. You were brave. Vulnerability always is. This simple validation nearly broke her. Amara blinked back tears. When I saw you standing there in the rain, Nathaniel continued, you reminded me of myself after Claire died. Lost, but still standing. It wasn't pity I felt. It was recognition. The honesty in his voice was unlike anything she'd heard in Gregory's smooth, practiced lines. This wasn't a rescue. It was a connection between two souls who understood disappointment. I don't need saving, Amara said, needing him to understand. Good, Nathaniel replied. Because I'm no one's hero. Just a man who's been where you are, standing in the rain, wondering what happened to the future you thought you were walking toward. Rain lashed against the windows, but inside, warmth had begun to replace the cold shock of rejection in Amara's chest. What happens tomorrow? She asked. Whatever you want, Nathaniel said simply. The guest room is yours for as long as you need it. I can help you get a flight back to Atlanta or... He hesitated. Or you could stay a few days. Not for me, he added quickly. For yourself. Take time to process what happened. Use the pool, the library. Figure out your next step without pressure. Amara studied him, looking for signs of deception, ulterior motives. She found none. Why would you offer that to a stranger? Nathaniel's smile was gentle. Because when Claire died, I had nowhere to fall apart in peace. Everyone wanted to fix me, save me, or use me. No one just let me be. Understanding dawned on Amara's face. This isn't a rescue, she said slowly. It's sanctuary. Exactly. Outside, lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the garden. In that flash, Amara caught sight of something unexpected, a small, colorful playground set partially visible through the trees. Nathaniel followed her gaze. Claire was a pediatric nurse, he explained quietly. We were planning to adopt. The paperwork was almost complete when she got sick. The revelation hung in the air between them, another layer of loss they both understood without words. I think I would like to stay, Amara said finally. Just for a few days. To figure things out. Nathaniel nodded, relief visible in his eyes. Not the satisfaction of a man who'd gotten what he wanted, but the quiet contentment of someone who'd done the right thing. Then consider this home your sanctuary, he said, for as long as you need it. Are you sure about this? Amara asked, smoothing down the midnight blue gown that draped perfectly over her curves. A week had passed since her disastrous arrival in Connecticut, a week of healing conversations, peaceful walks through Nathaniel's gardens, and gradual recovery of her confidence. Nathaniel stood in the doorway of the guest room, his eyes widening slightly as he took in her appearance. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo that transformed him from reclusive tech genius to commanding presence. Only if you are, he replied. The Ross Foundation Gala is the biggest charity event of the season. The Whitcombs will definitely be there. Good, Amara said with quiet determination. I want them to see me. The invitation had arrived 3 days ago, a thick cream envelope addressed to Nathaniel Pierce and guest. When he'd casually asked if she'd like to accompany him, Amara had surprised herself by immediately saying yes. Not as my date, Nathaniel had clarified quickly. Just as my friend. No pressure or expectations. But now, as they descended the marble staircase of the historic Westport Hotel ballroom, Amara felt every eye in the room turned toward them. Nathaniel Pierce, the famously private tech billionaire who rarely attended social functions, had arrived with an unknown woman on his arm. Nathaniel! A silver-haired man approached them, champagne in hand. We didn't expect to see you tonight. The board meeting last quarter wasn't enough socializing for the year? His curious gaze drifted to Amara. Davis. Nathaniel nodded politely. May I introduce Amara Johnson, a close companion visiting from Atlanta. Amara, Senator William Davis. His eyebrows rose slightly at the words. Close companion. But he recovered quickly, taking Amara's hand. Enchanted, Miss Johnson. What brings you to our little corner of New England? Before Amara could answer, a cold voice cut through the conversation. Yes, indeed. What does bring you here? Evelyn Whitcomb stood behind them, her silver blonde hair swept into an elaborate updo, diamonds glittering at her throat. Beside her, Gregory stared at Amara with naked shock, his champagne flute frozen halfway to his lips. Mrs. Whitcomb, Amara said calmly, though her heart raced. What a surprise to see you again. Confusion flashed across Davis's face. You know each other? Barely, Evelyn said dismissively. A misunderstanding last week. Nothing important. Is that what you call it? Nathaniel's voice remained pleasant, but a dangerous edge had crept in. I'd call it calculated cruelty, myself. A small crowd had begun to gather around them, sensing the tension. Gregory stepped forward, a practiced smile plastered on his face. Amara, what a pleasant surprise, he said smoothly, as if their previous encounter had never happened. I see you've met Pierce. Small world. Smaller than you think, Nathaniel replied before Amara could speak. Ms. Johnson and I have become quite close this past week. Gregory's smile faltered. Well, that's how nice. Isn't it? Amara finally spoke, her voice steady. Nathaniel has been showing me true Connecticut hospitality. The kind that doesn't involve humiliating people for sport. A woman in the growing circle of onlookers gasped softly. I'm afraid I don't know what you mean, Gregory said, his charm evaporating into panic. I think you do, Amara replied. Our correspondence? The plane ticket you purchased? The bet you made with your friends about whether I'd actually come? The whispers around them intensified. Evelyn Whitcomb's face had hardened into a mask of fury. Whatever grievance you think you have, this is hardly the place, she began. I agree, Nathaniel interrupted. Which is why we'll be keeping this brief. Gregory, you don't deserve to speak Amara's name after what you did. And Mrs. Whitcomb, your son's behavior reflects poorly on that family history you're so proud of. A young woman with sleek dark hair pushed through the crowd, phone in hand. Excuse me, but did I hear correctly? Gregory Whitcomb invited this woman cross-country as some kind of bet? Janice, this isn't appropriate for your little blog, Evelyn hissed. Actually, I'm covering the gala for the Times now, Janice replied with a sharp smile. And this sounds like a much more interesting story than rich people giving money to children's hospitals. Gregory paled. This is a private matter. Actually, said a tall man standing nearby. I remember you bragging about this at the club, Gregory. Something about proving to Pierce that these international dating sites were full of desperate women? Wasn't it a $5,000 bet? The murmurs around them grew louder. Someone had their phone out, recording. She's no one's second chance, Nathaniel said, his voice carrying through the now silent ballroom. And certainly not a punchline to your joke. Amara placed her hand gently on Nathaniel's arm. Thank you, she said quietly, but I can speak for myself. She turned to face the crowd directly. Yes, Gregory Whitcomb invited me here under false pretenses. Yes, it was for a bet. And yes, his mother called me a charity case while shutting the door in my face. Her voice remained calm and dignified. But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because Nathaniel Pierce showed me that not everyone in Connecticut confuses cruelty with cleverness. Janice was typing furiously on her phone. This is going live right now, she murmured. Gregory lunged forward, reaching for her phone. You can't. Davis stepped between them. Gregory, enough. Your father would be ashamed. As if on cue, the crowd parted to reveal Charlotte Pembroke, Gregory's supposed girlfriend, staring at him with disgust. We're done, she said simply, removing an enormous diamond bracelet and dropping it into his champagne flute. My father will hear about this. By morning, the story had gone viral. Security footage from the hotel showed Gregory's desperate attempt to stop the recording, paired with Amara's dignified response. #MailOrderBet was trending on Twitter, with thousands condemning Gregory's actions. And standing beside Amara through it all was Nathaniel, not as her savior, but as her ally. "You didn't need me at all," he told her as they left the gala, the night air cool on their flushed cheeks. Amara smiled. "No," she agreed. "But I'm glad you were there anyway." The guest house has its own kitchen, living room, and office space, Nathaniel explained as he showed Amara around the charming cottage nestled at the edge of his property. Sunlight streamed through French doors that opened onto a private garden. "You'd have complete privacy, but still be close enough if you need anything." 2 weeks had passed since the gala. The #MailOrderBet story had exploded across social media, with Amara receiving hundreds of messages from women sharing similar experiences with international matchmaking services. Gregory Whitcomb had deleted all his social media accounts and reportedly fled to his family's home in the Hamptons to escape the public shame. "It's beautiful," Amara admitted, running her fingers along the smooth marble countertop. "But I can't accept this, Nathaniel." "Why not?" he asked, genuine confusion in his eyes. "Your return flight isn't for another 2 months. The ticket Gregory bought is non-refundable. You're welcome to stay at the main house, but I thought you might prefer your own space." Amara took a deep breath. "I need to stand on my own 2 feet. I didn't come to Connecticut to trade one form of dependency for another." Understanding dawned on Nathaniel's face. "This isn't charity, Amara. It's friendship." "I know," she said softly. "And I'm grateful. But I need to rebuild my life on my terms." The next morning, Amara sat cross-legged on the guesthouse couch, her laptop open before her. She'd spent hours reading through messages from women across the country who'd been misled, manipulated, or humiliated by matchmaking services promising connections with wealthy men. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Nathaniel stood outside with a folder in his hands. "I've been thinking about what you said," he began without preamble. "About rebuilding on your terms." Amara invited him in, curious. "What if," Nathaniel said carefully, "I helped you start a foundation? Not as my charity project, but as a partnership. You would be the face, the voice, the decision maker. I would simply provide the initial funding." "A foundation? For what?" "For them." Nathaniel gestured toward her laptop, where dozens of messages from women glowed on the screen. "For women exploited by these matchmaking schemes. Educational resources, legal support, emergency travel funds for those stranded like you were." A spark ignited in Amara's chest, not the fluttering hope she'd felt with Gregory, but something steadier, stronger. "I don't know anything about running a foundation. But you know about teaching. About compassion. The rest can be learned." He placed the folder on the coffee table. "This is information about how to establish a 501c3. Think about it. No pressure." After he left, Amara opened the folder. Inside was not only information about establishing a nonprofit, but a draft proposal for the Second Door Foundation, a name that made her smile with its subtle reference to the door that had been slammed in her face. 3 days later, she presented Nathaniel with her revised proposal. "I want to focus on education first," she explained, pointing to her outline. "Many of these women don't understand their rights or recognize red flags. We could create free online resources in multiple languages." Nathaniel studied her plans, impressed by the thoroughness. "You've really thought this through." "I've been a teacher for 10 years. Amara reminded him with a smile. "Curriculum development is my specialty." By the end of the month, the Second Door Foundation had a dedicated office space in downtown Westport, a small staff, and Amara as its executive director. Nathaniel had provided the startup funding as promised, but remained in the background, never interfering with her vision. Amara's story began appearing in national media. "The bride who walked through the door they slammed" was the headline of a profile in a major women's magazine. Television shows requested interviews. A book deal was offered. Through it all, Amara maintained her dignity, never vilifying Gregory beyond stating the facts of what had happened. "This isn't about one man's cruelty," she explained during a television interview. "It's about a system that makes such cruelty possible, and the women caught in the middle." The work transformed her. The shy kindergarten teacher who had arrived in Connecticut with a single suitcase and shattered dreams now commanded rooms full of donors, spoke at conferences, and counseled women from around the world. One evening, as she prepared for a major fundraising event, Nathaniel appeared at her office door. "You're remarkable," he said simply, watching her review her speech notes. Amara looked up, surprised by the admiration in his voice. "I'm just doing what needs to be done." "No," Nathaniel shook his head. "You've taken something meant to break you and built it into a platform that's helping hundreds of women. That's not just anything." Amara felt warmth spread through her chest. Their friendship had deepened over the past months, but both had been careful to maintain boundaries. She focused on establishing the foundation, he engrossed in a new project at Pierce Technologies. "I couldn't have done it without you," she acknowledged. "You would have found another way," Nathaniel countered with absolute certainty. "Maybe not the same path, but you would have risen regardless. That's who you are, Amara." The media had begun speculating about their relationship, of course. "Billionaire's rescued bride" was a frequent tabloid headline that made them both cringe. But they knew the truth. This wasn't a rescue story. It was a story of a woman who had fallen but risen on her own terms, stronger than before. "The foundation is hosting a gala next month," Amara said, gathering her courage. "Would you be my official date? Not just as my benefactor or friend, but something more?" The smile that spread across Nathaniel's face was answer enough. "Did you see the latest?" Janet Willoughby whispered, sliding her phone across the marble tabletop of the Westport Country Club dining room. "Evelyn Whitcomb must be having fits." Her companion, Marjorie Caldwell, adjusted her reading glasses to peer at the screen. The headline from the society pages blazed. "Second Door Foundation secures $20 million in donations at star-studded gala." Below it was a photograph of Amara Johnson in an elegant emerald gown, standing confidently at a podium, Nathaniel Pierce gazing at her with undisguised admiration from the front row. "6 months," Marjorie murmured. 6 months ago, that young woman was being turned away from the Whitcomb doorstep, and now she's raised more for her foundation than the Whitcomb Family Fund raised all last year. Speaking of which, Janet nodded toward the entrance where Evelyn Whitcomb stood, surveying the dining room with regal disdain. Though her posture remained rigid, the strain of recent months showed in the new lines around her eyes. The Whitcomb name had suffered significantly since the #mail-order bet scandal. "Poor Evelyn," Marjorie said without a trace of actual sympathy. "First the scandal, then Gregory's disastrous apology tour, and now this. I heard Charlotte Pembroke's father pulled out of their joint venture in Manhattan. Gregory's been trying to rehabilitate his image," Janet gossiped. "Did you see that painfully transparent charity photo shoot he did with those refugee children? As if anyone would believe he's suddenly developed a conscience." Across town, in Nathaniel's home, Amara was curled up on the living room sofa, exhausted but exhilarated from the previous night's successful gala. "The donations are still coming in," she told Nathaniel, who was bringing her a cup of tea. "We'll be able to open the emergency housing facility months ahead of schedule." Nathaniel sat beside her, his fingers naturally finding hers. "You've accomplished more in 6 months than most people do in years." "We've accomplished it," Amara corrected him gently. "Your support made it possible. My money, perhaps," Nathaniel acknowledged. "But your vision, your determination, your heart, those are what made people believe in the second door." Their relationship had evolved naturally in the months since Amara had asked Nathaniel to be her date for the foundation's first event. They'd been careful, taking things slowly, both conscious of the unusual circumstances that had brought them together. But there was no denying the deep connection that had formed between them, built on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. "I received an interesting email today," Amara said, setting down her tea. "The Whitcomb Family Fund wants to partner with us on an initiative for underprivileged women." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. Gregory's latest attempt at image rehabilitation? Precisely. Amara's smile was knowing. I politely declined. The old Amara might have been intimidated by the Wickham name, Nathaniel observed. The old Amara died on that doorstep 6 months ago, she replied without regret. I've been thinking about that day a lot recently. How something that felt like the worst moment of my life led me here, to work I love, to purpose, to you. Nathaniel's expression grew serious. Amara, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. Her heart quickened. Yes? He reached into his pocket and pulled out not a ring box, as she'd half expected, but a set of keys. These are for you, he said simply. Keys? To what? To your own place, Nathaniel explained. I bought the brownstone you've been admiring downtown, the one near the foundation office. It's in your name. Completely yours. Amara stared at him in confusion. But I thought we were heading toward. Understanding dawned on Nathaniel's face, followed by a warm smile. This isn't instead of a proposal, Amara. It's a prerequisite to one. He took her hands in his. I want to marry you. I think you know that. But I want you to have your own space, your own home, your own security, regardless of what happens between us. I never want you to say yes to me because you need me. Only because you want me. Tears welled in Amara's eyes. How did you know that's exactly what I needed? Because I know you, he said simply. Your independence isn't a threat to us, it's the foundation of us. Amara leaned forward and kissed him, the keys pressed between their palms. When they parted, Nathaniel reached into his other pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Now about that proposal. Amara laughed through her tears as he knelt before her. The ring was simple and elegant, a perfect oval sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. Amara Johnson, you walked into my life with nothing but a suitcase and your dignity. You've built yourself into a force for change, a voice for the voiceless. I've fallen in love with your strength, your compassion, your unwavering determination. Will you marry me, not as your savior, but as your partner? Amara looked down at the man before her, so different from what she'd imagined for herself when she'd boarded that plane to Connecticut 6 months ago. This wasn't the fantasy romance she'd constructed in her correspondence with Gregory. It was something far more real, far more profound. Yes, she whispered, then again, stronger. Yes. As Nathaniel slipped the ring onto her finger, she leaned close to his ear. Not what they expected, she whispered with quiet triumph. His eyes crinkled with understanding as he completed their private victory. Exactly what you deserved. In the years that followed, the story of the Black mail-order bride would become legend in Connecticut society, not as a cautionary tale of reaching beyond one's station, as Evelyn Whitcomb might have preferred, but as a testament to resilience, to integrity, and to the unexpected paths that lead to true belonging. For Amara and Nathaniel, it was simply their beginning, a love story built not on rescue, but on recognition of what truly matters.